Riding your first century, your first 100-mile bike ride, is a rite of passage for any club cyclist. It's similar to a marathon for a runner. It's a doable but daunting distance. My first century was a disaster. I swore I would never ride a bicycle again. I made a number of mistakes I would not have made if someone had given me some advice. I didn't understand pacing, or nutrition, or navigation. In this video, I'm going to cover how to select, plan for, train for, and ride your first century. Follow along and learn how to enjoy your first century instead of hating it. I talk about a lot of products, which are all linked below. Once you've decided to ride a century, your first step is to choose whether it will be an organized ride or unsupported. If you're not sure, look for organized rides in your area. If you can't find one you like, you can opt for an unsupported ride you design yourself. If you're planning to ride a century, you're probably already a member of a club. Be sure to ask other members for advice on choosing a route or an event. Organized rides are ideal for a first century because the organizers have designed a safe and enjoyable route, provide rest stops with appropriate food and drink, and support in case you run into trouble and have to abandon the ride. Unsupported rides have the advantage that they can be ridden whenever and wherever you want, and they're a lot cheaper. Remember, your first century should be easy. You're more likely to succeed if it has less than 3,000 feet of climbing. You can add hills for your second century if you want. You should allow about 2 months of training up for your first century. Deciding to ride your first century is not a last-minute decision. It will take time to develop your endurance. There's an important rule to keep in mind. Never ride more than 50% further than your current personal best. So if your longest ride event is 30 miles, your next training ride should be about 45 miles. The next one will be 65 to 70. Then you're ready for a century. The reason for this rule is that each of these distances introduces a new problem you need to solve. For example, you can ride 30 miles without refueling, but on the 45-mile ride, you will have to stop to eat and rehydrate. Beyond 45 miles, you may start to realize your saddle is not as comfortable as you thought, or your handlebars are set up wrong. It's better to encounter these challenges one at a time and with plenty of time to resolve them. Also, your training rides should be like the century but shorter. Don't ride a series of flat training rides if the century is hilly. This is a good time to become familiar with navigation. You will either have to use a route sheet or a GPS head unit with a route sheet as a backup. You can use an app on your phone if it has enough battery life, or a dedicated head unit such as a Wahoo, Garmin, Brighton, etc. You need to become familiar with downloading routes, following them, and uploading your ride. One reason we ramp up the training rides is because it will let you know what gear could be upgraded and let you practice techniques that improve comfort. The training period should last 2, perhaps 3 months, and is the perfect time to make equipment, nutrition, and hydration choices. Some people can't tolerate real food while riding and prefer energy drinks and bars. Others thrive on carbs but can't handle protein while riding. You will experience discomfort on long rides, but you shouldn't need painkillers to complete a ride. Feel free to change saddles, stems, cleat positions, etc. to mitigate pain, but not just before the big event. I'm going to say that again. Do not make any changes just before the big event. If you have pain in your wrists or hands, there are several things you can do to fix it. Wear good quality gloves. Avoid pro or elite. They're for racers, and they focus on weight over comfort. Pearl Izumi, Lugano, and Juro make good gloves. They should cost $30 a pair, thereabouts. It's important to buy the right size. Another thing to look at is your handlebar tape. If you have cheap plastic or cotton tape, you should upgrade it to a gel tape. like Chinelli and Rock Brothers. If you've got the cash, try Silca. Good handlebar tape costs $20, $30, and you can double wrap your bars too. That's where you wrap a second set of tape over the first. A lot of endurance riders do this. Another good return on investment is increasing the width of your tires. The difference in comfort between 28mm and 32mm tires is huge. Some endurance riders even ride 40mm tires. There will be a limit on how wide your tires can be. This is controlled by the clearance of your frame, the inner width of your rim, and, if you have rim brakes, the distance between the pads when the quick release is open. Check the Chinelli or Silca websites for your ideal tire pressure too. If you're buying a wider tire, think about purchasing a puncture resistant tire such as Specialized Armadillo, Continental Gator Skin, or Schwalbe Marathon. Riding a Century is hard enough without having to fix a flat part way. Redshift makes a grip that attaches to the tops of your handlebars to make a comfortable place to rest your hands. It goes under the tape. Look for Redshift in the description for a link. It costs about $40. A more expensive way to reduce hand pain is to use aero bars. Profile makes some of the best, and they cost $100 to $200. Don't be tempted to buy cheap aero bars. They also reduce drag, rotate your hips, which spreads the pressure, and provide a lot more places for mounting lights, head units, cameras, bags, and other stuff. Aero bars take practice to safely use. You're further from the brakes, so you can only use them when it is safe and the pavement is good quality. Redshift also sells a suspension stem that costs around $200. It's not cheap, but it works. I have one on my road bike. Other manufacturers make them too. One more thing you can do if you have steel or aluminum forks is to upgrade to a carbon fork. There are many cheap carbon forks on Amazon, but this is something I would take to my local bike store. Expect to pay at least $100 for a reputable fork, plus installation. The return on investment here is quite low. The cheapest way to mitigate hand pain is to get into the habit of moving your hands around your handlebars regularly. As soon as the position starts to get uncomfortable, move to another position. Now let's talk about neck and shoulder pain. The muscles that hold your head up can get sore, especially if you're on your aero bars a lot. Fortunately, your aero bar also gives you a very upright position by putting your hands on the elbow pads. Riding upright is the quickest way to alleviate neck pain. If you have the skills, and it is safe, riding no-handed works well too. Stretching or laying down on a flat, hard surface at rest stops will help reduce neck, shoulder, and back pain for a while. Now it's time to talk about butt pain. This is a very common problem. There are mainly two kinds, pressure and chafing. They each have their own solutions. Let's start with chafing. Chafing is caused by the movement of your legs, causing rubbing in sensitive areas. You can combat chafing by wearing good quality shorts and undershorts. Perlizumi, Balif, and Louis Garneau all make excellent shorts in the $40 to $60 price range. Again, avoid pro and elite products, they're for racers. The same brands make undershorts, but I've had excellent luck with Souk undershorts at $25. You will need some kind of butt cream. Yes, it's disgusting. There are some dedicated products such as butt butter, technically called chamois butter, and also some other products such as bag balm and Lantiseptic that work even better. Apply it at the start of the ride and top it up every 50 miles or so to any part of your butt that gets chafed. The same shorts that reduce chafing will also reduce pressure. This reduces the feeling that your butt is bruised. There are several suspension seat posts on the market too. You can get piston seat posts for around $30 or parallelogram seat posts for around $200. Redshift makes one, and I'll include a link below. I've not tried it. Most saddles are not designed for endurance riding. Saddle comfort is very subjective, and I cannot tell you what kind of saddle will work best for you. I have a Brooks B17 saddle on all of my bicycles. At $120, they're average in price, but they are heavy and have to be broken in. On the plus side, they are crazy comfortable once broken in and last 40,000 to 70,000 miles in my experience. I know some people with 100,000 miles on their B17s. One caveat is they need to be ridden at least 1,000 miles before they are comfortable for a century, and they are not suitable for light riders. My daughter only weighs about 140 pounds, and she could not break her B17 in, so she got a Sella Anatomica, which is very similar but has thinner leather. She got this broken in within 200 miles of riding, and she happily rides double centuries on it. The downside to this saddle for heavier riders is it won't last as long as a B17. Another saddle worth considering, especially if you have religious or ethical issues with leather, is the Brooks Cambium saddle. I personally don't find it as comfortable, but it has no break-in period. As I said before, I can't recommend a saddle for you, but I do note the vast majority of endurance cyclists I know use one of these three saddles. The cheapest way to reduce saddle sores is to learn to stand regularly. Don't wait until your butt gets sore. Stand on descents and at stoplights to greatly reduce butt pain. Now let's talk about knee pain. Knee pain is normally caused by poor saddle height. I included a link to a GCN video on setting correct saddle height. The fastest way to set it is to put your heel on the pedal when it is at the bottom of the stroke. Your legs should be fully extended while your hips are level. Pain in the tendons at the back of your knee means your knee is being hyperextended at the bottom of the stroke. Lower your saddle 5 mm and see if that fixes the pain. Pain at the bottom edge of your kneecap indicates the saddle is too low. Raise it 5 mm and try again. Foot pain, especially hot foot, is generally caused by poorly fitting shoes. I like to ride SPD cleats because the recessed cleat lets me walk on floors without marking them or slipping up. However, they have a small contact point which increases the chance of sore feet. The Look cleat is probably the most comfortable overall. Obviously, replacing your pedals is quite expensive. If you have a hot spot away from the contact point, especially on one foot only, you may have a lump on your sole that is taking the brunt of the pressure. There's probably a fancy medical term for it, but I'll call it lump foot. Try buying orthopedic inserts and putting them under the insole or replacing the insole to spread the load. I have lump foot and this worked well for me. You can find any number of orthopedic inserts on Amazon.com. If you've never had a professional bike fit with your current bike, it might be money well spent. They might suggest moving the brake hoods or changing the stem. They might adjust your saddle height or position, or suggest different length cranks. Make sure they understand what it is you want to do with your bike. They rely heavily on your feedback, so don't be afraid to complain. If you do a 50+ mile bike ride before the fit, you'll be able to tell them which bits hurt and what needs to be fixed. Once you have a reasonable fitness level and a reliable bike, the next big factor for success is mental. As with any major undertaking, the key is to avoid surprises. If you're riding an organized ride, absorb as much information from their website as possible. You need to understand your route, where the hills are, where the food is, etc. Are there sections where you'll need to carry more? How quickly do you think you'll be riding? Do you need lights? If in doubt, take some. Always have a daylight visible tail light and use it. What will the temperature range be? Is rain likely? What kind of clothing do you need to bring? How will you carry extra clothing if you don't need to wear it? A week before the event, take an hour to clean and inspect your bike. Check the chain, brakes, and tires for excessive wear. Make sure it's shifting correctly. Check your spare tubes and your flat repair kit. Now it's time for the ride. It's not a race. I aim for a 14 mile per hour moving average and a 12.5 mile per hour overall average. This gives me an 8-hour total time for 100 miles. I can maintain this pace indefinitely. This may seem slow to you, but a conservative pace means you will finish the ride with a smile on your face. If you're lucky enough to be riding with a group or on a very flat route, you might enjoy a faster pace. On your first century, you probably want to keep your rest stops short. 10 to 15 minutes is ideal. Know what you want to do before you get there. Do you need water? What kind of food do you want? Do you need to make an equipment change? Having a list in mind makes it less likely you will forget something. Don't rush, but be efficient with your time. Once you've ridden a few centuries, it's nice to take longer, more luxurious stops. Carry an energy bar with you in case you start to bonk, which means run out of energy, between food stops. A Cliff Bar, Pro Bar, or something with about 400 calories is ideal. It's okay to put something in your back pocket at a food stop. Remember to eat before you're hungry and drink before you're thirsty. That's something you need to practice during training. If it's warm, don't forget sunblock and salt. A flat century ridden at a moderate pace will consume about 3,200 calories more than sitting on the couch all day. That doesn't mean your output for the day is 3,200 calories. It means your output is about 5,000 calories. You need to eat at least 2,000 calories during the event, normally more. You may have heard of carbo loading. This is where you eat a carb-heavy meal, such as pasta, the evening before the ride. This helps for the first 30 miles or so. You'll also be hungry at the end of the ride. Eat what you want. You earned it, and your body will actually let you know what it needs. During the ride, you should focus on eating carbohydrates and a little fat. Protein is harder to digest and is best consumed immediately after the event to help rebuild muscle. Avoid sugary drinks like soda or Gatorade during the ride. Their sugar concentration is about twice that required for optimal uptake, so they can upset your stomach. Alternatively, dilute them with an equal amount of water. Do this during your training rides too. Sugary foods and drinks are absorbed very quickly, so they can give you a quick burst of energy, but they also cause a sugar crash. Eating starch at the same time as sugar gives you that quick burst of energy without the crash. Bread, pasta, rice, and potatoes are all excellent foods while riding. Eat them on your training rides too, so you know how you handle them during exercise. There's a good chance you will feel down at some point in the ride. You may be more tired than you should be and find yourself wondering why you're out here. This is a sign you are bonking and need to take some carbs on board. That's what the energy bar you've been carrying around is for. Get that energy bar down, ride easy for 20 minutes and you will recover. Don't forget to replace the bar at the next opportunity. If you start to get a headache, it means you're not drinking enough. Make a point of drinking more frequently until the headache goes away. It might take as much as an hour. You should also monitor your urine output for the same reason. You've been practicing navigation on your training rides, but if you do accidentally go off course on the ride, you should endeavor to return to the route where you left it. And if that's unreasonable, you should at least rejoin prior to the next rest stop. When you ride an organized event, the organizers may offer souvenir t-shirts, jerseys, etc. It's nice to have something to remember your achievement. So congratulations, you finished your first century. What comes next? Well, many cyclists have no interest in riding beyond 100 miles, but there is a style of riding called randonneuring that has 124-mile and 186-mile formats. There are also double centuries that are 200 miles long. You can also design your own routes that can be as long as you want. I hope this video has given you the information you need to complete your first century with a smile. If you start planning your next century while still riding your first century, You had a good ride.